Okay, let's talk about complex numbers here for a second. So we have a couple of definitions. Square root of -1 equals I, and I squared equals -1. Now we know the square root of -1 is always considered as not a real number, which is exactly what these are. These are complex numbers, not real numbers. They can be written as a plus bi, okay? And this is where a and b are real numbers. Right? This is the thing, like if you have things written, for example, a and b could be any real number. So -5 plus 4i. This is an example of a complex number. Keep in mind, the main thing that you need to remember is that the square root of -1 is defined to be I. So this is the new notation we're using for things that are not real numbers when you have negatives underneath your square roots. So let's go ahead and talk about a multiplying example with that. I'm going to take two complex numbers, such as a plus bi, and I'm going to multiply them. Okay, so for example, -2 plus 4i, that's my first complex number, times 3 minus 5i. Multiply these two complex numbers exactly the same as you would multiply two binomials. Okay, I've got two terms in the first binomial and then two terms in the second. These are two complex numbers we're going to FOIL. Okay, first, -2 times -3. Alright, so -2 times -3, there's my equal, -6. Alright, and then continue on, outer, -2 times -5i. So -2 times -5i, both of those turn into a positive. And then we have 10i. We're treating that i just as you would an x. And then your inner, 4i times 3 is a positive 12i. Oh, whoops. Let's make that back so at least matches color. Positive 12i. Okay. All right, and then last but not least, 4i times the -5i. So positive times a negative will give me the negative. Now 4 times 5 is the 20. Now you treat those i's just as x's. I times I will in fact give you I squared. And then you can combine your like terms. So this is -6. You look at your middle two terms. In this case, they are like terms. Again, you treat those i's just as you would your x's. Okay, so those are like terms. 10i plus 12i will give me then the positive 22i. And then the other thing that you want to pay attention to is notice this I squared. What did we know before? We know for a fact, just like we talked about on the previous page, that I squared equals -1. This is something that we know. So I squared is in fact -1. So that entire I squared could be replaced with a -1. You still have the -20, but now instead of I squared you have a -1. And then you can continue to simplify this. -6 plus 22i. Two negatives will give me a positive. So that will be now a plus 20 times 1, which is 20. And then again, last but not least, finish combining your like terms. The -6 plus 20 will become a positive 14 plus 22i. This is the final version. It is written just as a complex number. It looks of the form, the same exact form, of an a plus bi. So that is our answer. Ta-da!